ball and then he almost turned the touchdown. You have to hurry. You have to hurry. Yes! It thinks that it's swinging in. That's what hits him. I think he's got enough wood on it. He's got plenty of wood on it. Can't afford to overpitch to Jacques Ellis.
Second one-day 100 from Skipper. And he put his hand up tonight to Fleming.
Got him! Maxwell Bowles, Trade Ward. Our team performances, and this will go down in his memory and this team's memory forever.
Who can forget that spellbinding moment in international cricket that announced the arrival of Jonty Rhodes?
He redefined the meaning of all-rounder. Breaking the world record of catches in the limited overs formats, he cemented his reputation as one of the finest cricketers of his time.
Always full of energy and keen on adventure, Jonty decided that his next cricketing journey was to track down legends that have made a dramatic impact on the game and gain insight into their careers and the modern game.
Meaty, muscular and mighty. That's Graeme Smith, who loomed even larger than all as South Africa's colossus of a captain. His achievements as a batsman are significant, but the most important monument to his career is the fact that under Smith, the confidence of South African cricket, both within and outside of the national team and its structures, was rebuilt. Smith's leadership and his batting were all about being direct and upfront, making him arguably the greatest South African captain to play the game. Graeme was enjoying a golf day at Fancourt Estate, so Jonty dusted off his clubs and joined him for a couple of holes to get his thoughts on the upcoming World Cup.
Graeme Smith, welcome to Hooked on Cricket. We out of a cricket environment at the links here at Fancourt. You walked off yesterday. I was watching you play golf with young Bobby Skidstad, former Springbok rugby player, rugby captain. With a build like you had, because there was not much to differentiate in the size there, was it always going to be cricket for you, or was rugby, growing up in South Africa, was rugby also an option?
Well, firstly, young Jonty Rhodes. It's awesome to see you again and spend some time with you. I think you're doing an amazing job as an interviewer.
As a hairstylist. Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. Trendy, man.
But yeah, no, I think for me, I was obviously grew up in South Africa where you play a lot of sports. If you're outdoors, you're always active. And for me, growing up, there was football, there was cricket. But then it built into sort of a bit of rugby in high school. But I think cricket was the one thing that the more competitive it got, the more I started to enjoy it. The others, maybe not so much, just played more for fun. So I think.
So your golf, like I saw yesterday off the tee box, it is just for fun because you make the other guys laugh with your swing. Is that correct or not? Or not really?
Well, I got better from there, Joe. I got better.
It's hard to believe.
The crowd.
You couldn't really get worse.
The crowd on the first put me under a bit of pressure. I did feel a few nerves, but I enjoy my golf. I just haven't had a chance to play too much. But I'm hoping now, now that I live near Callis and Boucher and they're professionals, I have to put some time in. But they don't have two young kids to deal with, which takes up a lot more of my time.
Did you have anybody that you wanted to emulate on the sports field, or were there any guys who were inspiration to you as a youngster in South Africa?
I think there were plenty. I don't think there was like really one specific guy that I sort of, it was the be-all and end-all of my life. I think because we were back in international sport, you had a whole lot of different icons around the world to sort of look and see and get an understanding of. But I think Gary Kirsten for me was one guy sort of that stood out probably more above the rest in terms of being an opening batter, similar style of sort of how he went about things.
Or leg side.
Yeah, like as it was through point, I was through mid-wicket. But I think it's sort of mentally a similar sort of setup and structure. I was really fortunate that Jimmy Cook played a big role with me from a technical perspective, understanding opening batting, and he wasn't giving me a huge amount of his time to train. I was always keen and eager to get out there and practice and do what was required. So it was always nice to have Jimmy around, lending an ear and putting in the work with me. But I think as a youngster, the biggest influences you have are probably your parents and the people around you. And schooling for me was a really fortunate thing to have. The traditions I got out of my school, the camaraderie, the value systems from home to school were crucial. And I think is as big a stepping stone as having a cricket mentor, in making it as young as I did.
So, talking about as young as you did, you not only made it as young as you did, you made it captain, the youngest ever at age 22 to captain South Africa. How did you deal with the pressures that came along with that? Because that's a whole new...
Yeah, Joe, I think it was a bit hit and miss, to be honest with you, when I look back, and I don't think there was any, thing that I could say that I did amazingly well or I did amazingly badly. I was really fortunate that there was a group of guys around me that supported me. I think that was the biggest thing, senior players like Sean and Jakes and Bouchy and Micaiah and so on, to have their backing and their support was huge. And then, I think for me it was then just a real want and I think ability to handle pressure. I think at 22, when you get thrust in the captaincy and you arrive in England for your first big tour, you either make or break. You're either going to get crumbled or you're going to stand up. And I think getting those 2 double hundreds up front really put a peg in the ground for me and gave me a bit of time to grow and luckily people supported me through, I think, especially those first 4 years where there was, good results, but, a lot of learning.
So that 259, which you spoke about double hundreds at Lord's, the home of cricket, the highest score by any foreign player at Lord's, did that take pressure off you? Was it something that, did you see it as a great record to be proud of hey, okay, now people kind of back off, they know I can play, I know I can play. How did you kind of handle that record? Was it something you're proud of or, okay, it's something I can put in the kind of bank it and move on from there?
Yeah, I remember straight after, I think the first initial, the 277 at Edgbaston, the first test match building up, I remember having a sleepless night the night before, had a decent press conference, I thought, it was the first thing as a captain before a test series, and then the nets were a little bit juicy, and I managed to, my confidence felt good in the build-up. I'd had some decent scores in the warm-up games. But there's a lot of pressure. NASA had been on my back in the press, and obviously huge question marks from everyone at 22 years old. What the hell were people thinking? So didn't have the best night's sleep the night before the test. Arrived at the test match, thought, do we bat, do we bowl? First big decision. And ended up batting, and then myself and Hirsch put on 300, which sort of set the tone. I got 277. And I don't think I could have asked for a better start. And I think that was always the key throughout my captaincy, was being able to perform, when you were under pressure, to be able to front up. And I think it ultimately probably defined my captaincy, is asking a lot of players and then doing it yourself and fronting up. So when I look back, someone said that would be the highlight of your career. I think it certainly, set up my career for me.
And throughout your test career, any particular innings that you kind of look back on really fondly as your best performance, whether it be a higher score in a tough situation, whatever it was, any particular innings that really stands out for you?
Yeah, Joe, I don't think I got many easy hundreds. 27, I think most of them were in tough situations or setting up a test match. And I think that's part of being an opening batter. And I obviously carrying the captaincy burden, there was that. But I think the 154 at Edgbaston to win the series on a very volatile crowd. There was lots of happenings around the game with guys not being able to see the ball, the side screen, and it was pretty amazing to finish up there and carry your bat through and be the first team since readmission to win in England. And then we went to Australia and I got 100 in the first tests and we chased 414 down. So I think in that short period, those 200s really made an impact for me as a batter and put my name probably in probably the top standards as an opening batter.
And that you spoke about that tour to Australia. You went there, the captain the side for the first time a South African team beat Australia in Australia. Pretty good experience, that?
Yeah, it was amazing. And the celebration was probably even better. But I think my first tour to Oz was as a captain, a young captain. I learned huge lessons. And we went to Oz on that trip, obviously a very decent side. We knew how we wanted to play. And I think more importantly, we were comfortable with who we were as a team. And the team had made great tactical changes. The personality within the group was strong. And we handled ourselves extremely well in that tour. And then to go and beat Australia in Melbourne, to win the series 2-0, it's sort of their big iconic stadium on Boxing Day test matches was a dream come true. And to see youngsters also like JP getting 160 there, Dale getting 70, it was amazing. We never really dominated the series, but we always found a way, which was incredible. And I think in your era, it was always kind of the opposites. They always found a way to beat us, and it was nice to finally turn those tables.
And in your 117 tests so far, not counting out, because you don't have a career as a golfer, that's for sure. Yeah. So you don't pack the cricket shoes too far away. Any particular test match then that stands out? Is it that trip to Australia, tour to the UK, something back at home, particular test that stands out as a real highlight for you?
For me, a personal milestone was probably after the 2011 World Cup. It was probably the first time I took a real beating after that World Cup. Came back to South Africa and the public weren't very friendly at that stage, and my confidence was probably for the first time in my career. I was always sort of an internal guy. Got a lot of my strength from inside, and that I definitely felt vulnerable for the first time in my career. And that Test match we bowled Australia out for 46 in their second innings, and we needed 200 odd to win, and I went on to get 100 in the fourth innings of the game to win the Test match. Was for me was a big stepping stone in terms of the longevity in my career. I was at a very vulnerable place then.
We talk about the longevity of your career. As 53 Test wins, the most successful Test captain for South Africa. How did you maintain that? You must take some serious pressure, not only as the opening batter, but then as the captain as well. How did you maintain that passion and that will to want to lead from the front with the bat and with the captaincy? How did you maintain that?
It's a good question, Joe, and I guess it's hard to define. I think for me it was an internal thing. I had the ability to maybe, cope under that pressure, with the knots in your stomach and not getting much sleep and knowing what needs to be done. And I think also the experience of understanding, okay, how are we going to go about this? But I think surrounding yourself with good people, and I think the Protea Fire cultural identity thing, that study and really, growing that culture within the squad, our value systems, our traditions, our team songs, really took a lot of pressure off me, because suddenly it became an environment where you weren't the only person, trying to drive things. Everyone had a stake in that environment and truly believed in what we were about, which in turn took a lot of that pressure off me. And I think there's no ways you can survive if you're carrying the can for 12 years by yourself.
We're talking about driving. You're here to do a bit of driving on the golf course, so get you off your backside and onto the golf course and let's go to a few golf balls.
Okay, I want to see your swing also now, Joe.
Jonty was chasing a different kind of white ball around as he joined up with South Africa's greatest ever captain, Graeme Smith.
So, Graeme, before I go take your money on the golf course, talking of money and cricket, the IPL, there's been a lot of changes in the format of the game. Do you see that there's enough room for all three formats, for Test cricket, 50 overs and T20?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've always been, an advocate of T20 cricket being a domestic-based thing. Keep it away from international cricket and let Test cricket and ODI cricket progress from an international perspective. And almost like Premiership football, the Spanish La Liga, let T20 operate within that space. I think with all three at international level, it could be difficult. I think it puts, from my perspective, puts one-day cricket under a little bit of pressure. I mean, Test cricket we all want to see stay strong because it'll keep the standard of the game high. And I think it's the most interesting format for all of us that have been in the game a long time, and definitely the biggest test of your skill.
You played in a few IPLs, talk about domestic cricket, and do you think that having South Africans, Australians, not many English guys go play in the IPL, do you think that's kind of leveled the playing field slightly in the subcontinent? Too often, in my cricket career, we went to India or Pakistan and the guys were dreading playing in those kind of conditions. Do you think the IPL is, sure, given the young Indian players access to good international players, decent, reasonable coaching, but it's also given confidence to other players playing in the subcontinent?
Yeah, I mean, the guys have made friends now. They've learnt new things about those countries. And the more time you spend in a place, the more acclimatized you become, definitely. So it's not as daunting as, I guess, when we started or even when you started, Joe. I mean, that was a long time ago.
Very, very long time ago. But as far as I'm going to hit this drive, that's how long it is.
hotels have improved. Just India in itself has, become a great place to tour, a great environment to be in. I think the guys certainly do enjoy the extra experiences, and the IPL's given them a great life. The guys who've got in there and done well, the platform that Indian cricket has given them from an individual perspective, no one can complain about it, but be very grateful for.
What is your take on the use of technology for decision making, for referral?
I think it's great for the game. I mean, we've played in Test matches where you've had that absolute shocker and you couldn't do anything about it. And now guys, have the opportunity to overturn that. I think it's all about why are you doing it and why is it set up. I think at the moment it's probably a little bit more biased towards the umpire. He's definitely getting the benefit of the doubt. And I think, one thing for me is I'd like to see the ICC, really drive the fact that it be used across the board. And then we can make a real informed decision on whether it's a benefit or not. But, I certainly have played in games and test matches where it's been huge benefit to both sides.
You've played in a few one-day games. 438 at the Wanderers, your 90 or 55. I mean, everyone talks about Herschel's 170. I actually talk about Makai's one run, which I think was quite an important contribution at the talks that I speak about. Chasing 438, one can still make a difference. Your 90 or 55, it was a knock. Just South Africa needed to keep going, and they did. I mean, talk us through that game.
So you always used to say one run can make a difference. Eh? That's how you operated in the field, and I think that was crucial. I mean, I don't think I watched Makai's shot until I saw the highlights package a few hours later. But it was an unbelievable day. I wish I could package that 10 minutes after that game and have kept that with me throughout my life. I think it was an amazing, thing to be a part of. And, I think it was just, Butter got it early, Herschel came in, and we just had to get going, and suddenly, great pitch. Get momentum, and you suddenly get on the front foot and things change. The hardest thing was to keep going at that level for as long as we did, and then suddenly you get yourself in the game, and then it was about finishing it off. And luckily we had people with the experience of Bouchy at the bottom end that did that for us.
Which for you did you prefer to play? Was cricket just cricket, or was it definitely tests as opposed to one days for you? What did you prefer to play?
I think when I was in the midst of it, I enjoyed all formats. You just want to win. You want to do well. It's about performing. But I think certainly Test cricket for me was the one that stood out. Every session was different. It was ability to play under a huge amount of pressure. Every session you had to say, okay, well, this is the most important session. We've got to pick ourselves up, and it just never stops. And I always used to talk about breaking points, and I don't think in any other format of the game that you get breaking points like you do in Test cricket, where you neck and neck, and suddenly a team just can't handle it anymore, and you've just got a little bit more than they've got. And often with us, when we became the number one Test team in the world and we were maintaining that level, we often were like that. We knew we could operate under pressure, and then when it was needed, we could really step it up, and that was great to be a part of.
My stats guy is just telling me, and I can't believe it's true, you've actually got 18 one-day international wickets. 18! Is that true? It can't be. I'm actually have to go. Talk us through all 18, because there's a lot. Or can you remember one that was very special?
I remember there's a lot of world-class players in that 18. Brian Lara caught and bowled. I think I got Hussey. Graeme Thorpe, he was definitely my bunny back in the day.
So
yeah, left
of course, I'm bigger part. Off spin. You bowled off spin rubbish.
I was the biggest turnover ball in South African cricket for a very long time until
after Pat Simcox. You're right up there, neck and neck with Simo. That little.
Simo's going to kill
only
me
have to turn one.
But
what was Simo's theory? You only have to turn one.
Yeah, definitely. Creative doubt. But I enjoyed my bowling. Before I got picked for South Africa, I was sort of an all-rounder. Opened the batting and bowled off spin for Western Province. Had a good season. I think Darren Lehman's even there. Wasn't he a good player of spin?
But spin, that's not so good in the straight ball.
So I enjoyed it. I think as time went on, bowling took more of a back seat. With the burden of captaincy mentally, and also body probably didn't last as long as I would have liked. A lot of injuries. I had big ankle surgery a few times, and
you got big ankles.
Yeah, probably set my bowling back a bit.
Yes. Well, talk about pressure, impact. I'm looking forward to putting you under pressure on the golf course by impacting the golf ball a very long way down the field. So stand back. Let me show you how it's
for golf
done.
in the links. So I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Old school, old school golf. What do you mean? Come on. Oh, lovely, Graeme. Beautiful. Look at that, straight down the fairway. Okay, well, my old school golf didn't help on the old school golf course. But what's your excuse? You look as bad as you played.
So, that's rich. Look at you.
Okay, you had to cricket, no golf. We won't even talk about golf. Now, your Cricket World Cups, you played in 3. Different campaigns in different continents. What stands out for you in those 3 World Cups?
Well, 2003, I got an opportunity because you broke a finger.
That's right. I wasn't going to mention that either.
Yeah. I was in a movie one day, walked out, had a phone call to say Jonty's done another ridiculous fielding drill and is out of the World Cup and you in. So that was my first one, and that didn't end so well with Duckworth Lewis and the like. But as 21 years old, it was a great experience. Caribbean World Cup, I thought we played nicely. We got stuck in Guyana for almost like 2 weeks with nothing to do, a lot of rain, no training. We lost a little bit of momentum then, but ultimately lost the semi-final to the great Australian team
I was a fielding coach, so stuck up the river with you crazy people in the rain. But the game against Australia, tactics-wise,
I don't think it was our specific tactic to go and go hard. I think it was just maybe in each and every one of us we've got to do something special to beat this team, and we need to. I mean, we had played them early in the tournament. They had got 380. We got close, and I don't think we specifically spoke around it, but maybe internally we thought, geez, we need something special here to beat these guys, and got ourselves into trouble, and it never happened, Last World Cup 2011 in India, I thought it would always be a big push for us to win in India. But I think losing in Bangladesh to New Zealand was very, very disappointing. I think that they bowled well, got the ball to reverse on a pretty low and slow wicket. But a game we definitely, from the outset, I believe we should have won.
How important is it for you to get those power plays right as a captain? I mean, do you think it makes or breaks a game, or does the player still have to step up and take advantage of that?
There's only one extra man in the ring, which I guess is a big difference. But I think so much is spoken about it nowadays, and often as a team, I think it's just about having a good method around it. I think so often today teams come out swinging and get themselves into trouble, end up losing wickets. But we always just think if we could get just 2 above run rate in that power play, then we're doing well from a batting perspective. And from a bowling perspective, it was all about taking wickets. Obviously understanding what type of fields, getting the bowlers to commit to their fields, but having a mindset of not just placing the ball there, but still trying to commit and knock people over, because it's ultimately the pressure then shifts onto the batting side. They've got to make the play in that power play. Everyone's talking about, they need to score runs, So if you mentally can shape up and commit, then from a bowling perspective, it can be really rewarding.
Any team that in the 3 World Cup campaigns have brought out the best in you? Was it India have Pakistan, it's a whole new war zone. Australia, England, it's not quite the Ashes, but it's certainly a lot of... Is it Australia always in a World Cup environment, or any team that you like playing?
I think any of the top nations. I mean, playing India in 2011 in Nagpur was a hell of an experience. And I think my ears rang for about 3 days afterwards. I mean, it was insane. I mean, Sachin and Sehwag put on a massive opening stand, so we managed to claw our way back into the game as the game went on, and it ultimately ended up winning it. But there were moments in that game where I can just remember, it felt like we were standing next to a big speaker with big dance tunes playing. It was so loud. But I think any of the top nations in a World Cup, it's a big game, must-win game, and you got to do it. But I think this tournament, for me, what I like is that I think it's set up better, not as long, round robin phases, and hopefully more opportunity to make an impact.
If you can go back to any one game in your Cricket World Cup career and change it or do something differently, would it be that 2007 against Australia in the semi-finals? Any game that you would do something?
Yeah, I think honestly, if we had just probably posted 250 in that game, we were right there. I think, but I think at those stages, we were reliant on a few players that needed to perform. I think personally, that was my best World Cup as a performance-wise. I mean, Jakes was a world-class player. We had a lot of youngsters, and I think the key is there is in those big games, we needed certain people to perform. Whereas I look at our squad now, and there's enough performers across the board, and I think that's exciting. I think in those World Cups, it's not often you feel like you have bases covered. Maybe 99 for you, where you thought, geez, we were a great team. And, but for me, in all the World Cups, I always felt like we needed certain people to really perform in this World Cup if we were going to get close to winning it. But I don't feel that now about the current team. I feel like there's a lot more options and opportunities for guys to do well.
Well, I want to go to those guys behind the bar because my golf, I spent the entire day looking for golf balls. Let's go get a drink.
Thank you, Joe. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Summer, it's pressure with the ball and Andy almost going to have to hurry. He'll have to hurry. Yes! That is swinging in. Oh, that's convincing. I think he's got enough wood on it. He's got plenty of wood on it.
Can't afford to overpitch to Chuck Ellis. Second one-day 100 from skipper. And he's put his hand up to night speed of Fleming.
Team performances, and this will go down in his memory and this team's memory.